So the book that I chose to read was Tell Them Who I Am by Elliot Lebo. It was published in 1993 by the Free Press. The main topics of the book. The book was divided into two parts, which would be problems in living and making it body and soul. These two parts demonstrate the focus of the book being homeless women and how they are perceived versus how they actually make it. Research questions. A direct quote from the book itself was, how, in short, do they stay fully human while body and soul are under continuous and grievous assault? So basically just looking at how the women continue to live. The central ideas were understanding homelessness, women's problems, struggles, and victories. The key concepts were how women are viewed in society, what systems are in place to help the homeless, and daily realities that they face. Major themes were positions of women in society, homelessness, and challenges women face while being homeless. Lebo actually used a lot of different methodology and specific research methods. The first being naturalistic observation, the next field research, and lastly participant observation, which I think made this book a lot more interesting to read because you were really seeing these people's stories. So looking at the major themes and findings, the first theme being position of women in society, it just basically looked at how they are viewed as inferior and almost worthless individuals. Homelessness itself, just how different life is on the street, what problems these women face living on the street. And then that segues really nicely into daily challenges women face, which would be shelter living, which comes with not being able to keep any of your possessions because it's not safe to leave it in shelters. Shelter rules. So the shelter that Lebo actually worked at, the women had to be on the street by 7 a.m. no matter the weather. So if they didn't have a job or their appointments didn't start yet, they were forced to kind of figure out what to do. There was also work, not being able to get jobs or keep jobs. No families, because when you're homeless you tend to be homeless because you don't have a family you can rely on or a family who can support you. These women also face a lot of domestic violence and they're often victims of crime. So the most important quote that I found from this book was actually in the introduction, and I just thought that it summed up what the book was about very nicely. Tell Them Who I Am focuses on the dynamics of shelter life. Initially, my aim was to write a straightforward description of shelter life and ideally to try to see the world of homelessness. Oh, that's my cat, sorry. Come here. This is Atlas. Initially, my aim was to write a straightforward description of shelter life and ideally to try to see the world of homelessness and as homeless women see and experience it. Later, when trying to make sense of my notes, I realized that another of my aims was to explain both to myself and others how these women remained human in the face of inhuman conditions. I had come to see how inadequate it was to think of them in one-dimensional, stereotypical terms. Okay. Stereotypical terms such as mentally ill or alcoholics, as incomplete persons deficient in morals or character, or even as dissatisfied persons. Go it alone isolates, no longer connected with family or friends. So I just thought that quote really showed what the book was about and Lebo's true passion for this topic. He got involved in this because he actually started volunteering at a homeless shelter, and that's where he met a lot of these women and where he started making these connections. And throughout the book he tells stories of these women's lives and tells their personal accounts because he's there talking to them. Like, he's interviewed people who work at the shelter, women who go to the shelter, all that. So he really has a deep connection. So my final thoughts were overall that this book was a lot more interesting than I thought it would be. I thought it would just kind of be a, hey, this is how women are perceived, like, this is how sociologists view it. But in reality, it was a lot more powerful, and it really spoke to the character of these women and truly how disgusting it is that they're viewed in this light. Lebo's research methods made the stories of these women come alive, and you could really understand their struggles, and you could see where they were coming from and how society just simply was not set up to see them succeed. Yeah, overall, it was a really good book, and I'm really glad that I fully read it.